welcome to my first booktube video. I'm really excited but also quite nervous because I haven't done anything on YouTube in ages, so I'm just winging it. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so this video is going to be just a very standard wrap up for January, everything I read in January, and also my TBR for February. So let's get started. The first book I read in January is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Sehi. I'm really sorry for my Korean pronunciation. So this book is kind of a memoir, non-fiction. The author went to therapy and recorded her sessions and then transcribed some of the sessions into a book, and she kind of complements those with shorter essays on some of the stuff that was discussed in therapy. I thought this was really interesting. I did see some criticism about this book that I think someone said like, oh, if you're being recorded, how realistic or like how truthful are you really being? That didn't really worry me too much because I think it was pretty clear from the sections chosen that this was not like full transcripts of every therapy session. This was just like the bits that she thought would be interesting for a reader, so that was fine. Yeah, it was nice to read about like someone else going through therapy. I've done counselling and stuff before, and it's just like almost reassuring to like have someone else write about it, so I'm glad that that was done. Yeah, I give it 4 stars. The only thing I would have liked to see more of is so towards the end she kind of runs out of therapy sessions and just has like a series of the shorter essays like continuously. It would have been really nice to have more therapy sessions kind of interspersed in that, because it kind of flowed really nicely when she like picked up something and then almost did like a kind of journal entry about it. But towards the end I think it was basically just like, oh well, I've written all these essays so let's put them in. But I thought it was good, and I would like to read more from this author, whether it's non-fiction or fiction. The second book I read this month is Find Her by Sarah A. Denzel. Find Her is a thriller set in the UK. It follows 3 brides. They're all getting married on Christmas Day in the same venue. And there's a big snowstorm and the brides all go missing. And the kind of fun part of the book is that you don't know which bride is going around doing murder and other weird stuff. In the background, there's kind of these chapters that are just called The Bride, and you don't know which one it is. I give this book 3 stars. I think that's probably a little bit generous for me. I don't normally read thrillers that often. I tend to only like them when they're like really, really well written or they're really unique. Something like Gone Girl. I really enjoyed Girl on the Train, like those kind of things, but this for me was a bit gimmicky. I really loved one of the brides. One of the brides is like fully characterised and so awesome, has loads of background, and I think really the book should have just been about her. The unknown bride thing didn't really work for me, mostly because like in the first bride chapter she mentions her fiance, and it's spelled with like 1 E, not 2 E's, so it's the male version of fiance. One of the couples that's getting married is gay, so you immediately know that like it's not the gay bride that's running around doing murder and stuff. That was kind of annoying for me, but hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler because it's literally in the first chapter. But I don't know if anyone else picked up on it. At book club it seemed like it wasn't that obvious to everyone, so I don't know, it might just be me. I thought it was entertaining, but I thought some of the stuff that was in it, particularly around like incel culture and things, wasn't handled very well. It was kind of, it felt like it was thrown in for shock factor, which I didn't enjoy too much. And yeah, I think there was just a little bit too much going on. It made the book very fast paced, but I don't think it added much to the story. It was more just like it made the reading experience more entertaining. If you like thrillers, if you're not fussy about thrillers, then it's probably a fun read. The next book I read in January 2023 is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So, I gave this book 3 stars. I know that a lot of people really, really love it, but I just found it really boring. I'm so sorry. Some of it was fun, like I liked the magical realism stuff, and I'm really glad that I read it. I feel like it's an important book to read in order to see like how Garcia Marquez writes. I think it's like an important book to be on curriculums and on people's shelves and stuff like that. But I just was really struggling to keep reading. I think part of the problem was that like every single person has the same name. Like literally there's like 4 people called the same name. And I know like it's all family, but like they all have the same first name too. And I'm like, please, please give them different names. I can't keep up. I definitely enjoyed parts of this book. I loved the magical realism, particularly one of the characters floating away into the sky and just disappearing forever. That was great, and I like the absurdity of it all, and I think I would like enjoy other magical realism books after reading this one. I don't know if it was the era for me or like I really struggled with the fact that some of the paragraphs were like 2 pages long. It just wasn't written in a way that I'm used to reading, so maybe an audiobook would be better for this. I don't know, but yeah, I understand why people like it, and I could appreciate the skill in the writing and the skill in like being able to put this huge story together. Just wasn't particularly enjoyable for me. Okay, number 4. So the 4th book I read this year, another classic, is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it so much. It made me cry twice. I cried once at a fish dying and another time at the ending. It's just like so simple and beautiful. It just feels like it captures humanity. I've never read any Ernest Hemingway before, so I don't know if this is like common in his work, but I just thought he was able to write people and what it means to be human and to be alive, like just so well. Absolutely loved it. I'd recommend it to everyone. It's only 100 pages, and yeah, that's all I have to say. It was great. Please read it. The 5th book I read this month is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. If you don't know, Jules Verne is the person who wrote Around the World in 80 Days. I didn't realise that he'd written like I think something like 40 or 50 different adventure novels in this kind of same vein, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is one of these. This book is about an academic. He gets roped into searching for a big sea monster, and basically things turn out much different than he expected, and he ends up going on a big trip around the world under the sea, as the name suggests. I give this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it as like a classic adventure novel. There is a lot of literally just biological information about sea creatures. Like there's some paragraphs that are just like, I saw this mollusk and this fish and this mollusk and this fish and this shark, and that was like, I definitely skimmed those parts. I mean, it could have done without that, but at the same time it was written in like the form of the academic's journal, and like knowing academics, they would definitely just catalogue every fish that they've seen on a boat like this. Like it's a new opportunity. You're excited about new knowledge. I get it. So I guess it kind of made it more believable that it was like an actual, just like a guy that's been swept along and he's really excited. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like my favourite of all time, but it kind of has like slight sci-fi vibes. And I'm a big sci-fi fan, so I did enjoy that. Next, I read a lot of classics this month. I actually didn't realise until I sat down. I don't normally read this many classics. It just kind of accidentally happened. So I read A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I didn't physically read this. I listened to a podcast called Craftlit. I'll leave the link in the description below. Craftlit is really, really good if you are interested in reading classic literature, but you would like someone to kind of walk you through it. So the woman that runs it, she has previously taught English and drama and like literature and stuff like that, so she really knows what she's talking about when it comes to books, and she gives some really interesting commentary. She does like a chapter to each episode and explains what's important to look out for, and I found that this helped so much for A Tale of Two Cities. I don't have like a lot of training in like reading classic literature, that like I did higher English and that was as far as I got, so it was really nice to have basically like a teacher walk you through what's important in this book and what to look out for, and the metaphors and the sort of imagery, because I think a lot of classics have that stuff and like it can be hard to pick up on your own. So I really enjoyed that, and I highly recommend listening to Craftlit if you're interested in picking up more classic literature. But Tale of Two Cities takes place during the French Revolution, and it goes between England and France. I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't know much about the French Revolution before reading it. The most I'd I'd seen like the Les Mis movie, but I haven't read the book, and I haven't really studied the history of the French Revolution, so I learned so much from this book, and I really enjoyed it for that reason. I give this book 4 stars. It's very Victorian, as is to be expected from Charles Dickens, which isn't really my favourite, but I can appreciate it. I would definitely recommend reading it just to like understand all the references that are made to the French Revolution and A Tale of Two Cities. I think it's a really interesting take on it. Okay, on to the next book. The 6th book I read, actually I'm going to do 6 and 7. So 6th and 7th books I read this month were Convenience Store Women and Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. I have found a new favourite author. I absolutely adore Sayaka Murata. I think part of the reason I loved it so much is because I listened to the audiobooks, and the woman who was reading the audiobooks was just incredible. Like, so good. She read the books perfectly, in my opinion. So Convenience Store Women is about a woman who's she's coded autistic. It's never actually told to you that she is autistic, but she very much has like a lot of autistic traits. She works in a convenience store. She loves it. Like, as far as she's concerned, she was born to be a convenience store worker, and it makes her happy. But she is facing a lot of pressure from family and friends and society in general to get a proper job or to get married and have children, and the book kind of explores her experience with that and the pressures that she faces, and I just thought it was awesome. Really nicely written. It's so unique the way it's written, because it's written in this almost sort of like robotic voice. It's kind of like an alien speaking to you. I think she captures like neurodivergent voices really well. Like, obviously all neurodivergent voices are different, but I think this one in particular, it feels like such a real character. She's so fleshed out. I could really like relate to a lot of what she was talking about. Earthlings is a little bit more out there and has a lot of difficult subjects, so if you have any triggers, I would highly recommend checking the trigger warnings first, because this book is weird and goes to a lot of dark places. But saying that, I absolutely adored it. I thought it was so fantastically bizarre. I loved the characters, like everything about this, the way it's written. Like, Sayaka Murata for me is just like brilliant, so absolutely adored it. 5 stars. Highly recommend it to anyone who likes weird fiction, but please check the trigger warnings first. Oh, we're getting some sunshine. The next book I read is Unmasking Autism by Devon Price. I rated this 5 stars. I think that this is such an important book to read. I'm not autistic myself, and this book is aimed more towards autistic people specifically, but I still thought it was such an important read in order to like understand the neurodivergent experience better. Devon is an amazing writer and activist. I highly recommend reading this, especially if you have any friends or family or even colleagues that are autistic. I think it will help your understanding so much, and I've heard from other autistic readers that this is like really good as an autistic person as well. So if you are autistic, then it's supposed to be a great read too. So yeah, highly recommend. Okay, we're nearly there. The next book I read in January is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Oh, my leg is dying. Andy Weir is the person who wrote The Martian, which got turned into a movie. It basically follows a science school teacher who gets drafted onto like a suicidal mission to save the world. And that's really all you need to know. I really loved like the science in it, and I think that the fact that the guy who's the main character was a science teacher for like elementary school meant that that was like a really nice segue into being able to put science into like an easy to understand format. So I think that worked really nicely. I did find it very much like a kind of corny like everyman story where like, I don't know, just some of it was kind of cheesy for me. It was enjoyable. It was a good adventure, and yeah, I recommend it if you like sci-fi in general. So the last book I read in January is Breasts and Eggs by Miko Kawakami. I gave this 5 stars, another new favourite for me potentially. This book follows working class women in Japan, and one of them in particular trying to deal with being professional versus being a mother and what she wants to do about that. There's also some really interesting debates about motherhood and family and like what a real family is and what children require in order to grow up, and whether we even have the right to have children in the first place. And I thought it was super interesting, super in-depth. I also just loved the like visual imagery in this book, I felt like sometimes when I read books, I can't like fully visualize what's going on. I don't have like the best visual thing in my head. I don't know. For me, this book had like some of the best description I've read. Like, it wasn't like it was particularly detailed. It was just the words that she chose to describe stuff made me see it so vividly. I don't know if that's more of a credit to the translator. I really love Miko Kawakumi's writing. It just speaks to me. I don't know, like, you know how some people who read Sally Rooney are like, this is just the best voice, like, I get it, it's me. That's kind of how I felt about this book. I don't fully get the Sally Rooney vibe, but it gave me that kind of feeling of like, this woman thinks in the same way as me. And I thought that was really cool. The book's really feminist. She writes in like a really unique way where she uses kind of dreams and memories to tell the story. It's almost like stream of consciousness writing at times, which I really loved. I love those books usually in general. I was so like enthralled by the like philosophical debates in this. This was also the first book that I annotated, and you can see like just how many tabs I've put in here. I absolutely loved it. It was really, really good. Okay, so in total I read 11 books this month. That is huge for me. Normally, like, I think last year I read about 45 total, so that's an average of like 4 or 5 a month. And yeah, so this is a lot for me. I hope it continues. And with that, I will introduce my probably very ambitious TBR for February. Okay, so the first book I'm going to be reading, or I mean hopefully finishing in February, is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I am already about 350 pages through this, so I've got about 150 to go. I am loving it. I just haven't quite gotten around to finishing it yet because it's quite a big book and I read a lot in January, but I'm looking forward to finishing that. Next up, we have my book club pick of the month, which is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I'm not a big romance girly, but I'm open to it. So I've heard that Emily Henry is really, really good. Our theme for this month was romance, seeing as it's Valentine's Day, so I'm willing to give it a try, and hopefully she will live up to like the hype, because I know that people think that she is one of the best romance writers out there at the moment, so fingers crossed. The next book I've got on my TBR is The Last Witch from the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. I'm really sorry for the pronunciation again. I got this from the library, hence the shiny cover. I really enjoyed the first couple of seasons of The Witcher on Netflix, and I've watched a lot of the gameplay, so I was interested to pick up the series and see how I get on. Next, I'm hoping to read Volume 1 and maybe Volume 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. This manga sounds really interesting. Me and my partner have just started collecting it, and I'm hoping that it will be a new favourite. Fingers crossed. The next book I have on my TBR for February is We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. So We is a dystopian sci-fi novel written in 1920-1921. It predates Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and it apparently inspired 1984 by George Orwell. And this is a new translation that apparently is supposed to be amazing. That came out in 2021 by Bela Sheyevich. It's been written up as being like a really good, vivid translation of it. So I've never read this story before, but I found it in Waterstones and I picked it up because it looked awesome. Next on my TBR, I have this book by Jen Winston called Greedy: Notes from a Bisexual Who Wants Too Much. I'm looking to read more LGBT authors, and I found this in my local LGBT bookstore. I'm really excited to read it. Being bi myself, I find that like a lot of LGBT stuff I read is focused on being gay or being trans, and like I'm excited to read more bi voices. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Okay, so that's it for my physical TBR. Oh, no, it's not. I have done a TBR jar for this year. So I have a lot of unread books on my shelves behind me, and I want to read like at least 2 of them each month. So I'm gonna pick 2 out of here right now. Give it a good shake. Let's see if I can get my hand in this. Let's find one somewhere in the middle. You can look at it first so that I'm not spoiling it for myself. What does it say? Walden? Oh god, okay. Right, well. That technically should have been in the non-fiction box. I have a non-fiction TBR jar in here as well, so I'm actually going to take this as my non-fiction pick for the month because I'm also trying to read more non-fiction, and I'm going to pick 2 more from here that are hopefully actually fiction. So let's have a look. There's one. What have we got? What have we got? What have we got? What does it say? Goethe on Kindle. Okay, Goethe, interesting. So let me just look up the synopsis for that. Okay, so Goethe is set in 1945 and it follows a woman who has a Czech mother and a German father, and she is dealing with World War II and being an enemy of the state and stuff like that. So it's award winning. I'm looking forward to it. Should be good. Okay, next one. I think I need a bigger jar or bowl or something. Oh. Okay, I got one. What does it say? The Witch's Tree on Kindle. Okay, interesting. Okay, so The Witch's Tree by Elena Collins is a book that goes between present day and 1682. I think it follows like a cottage where a witch has lived, or a family of witches or something like that. I think I started it. I read like maybe 20 pages or so and it seemed pretty good, so yeah, that should be a good one. Fingers crossed. It's rated very highly on Goodreads. It's got like 4.47 on Goodreads, but not very many actual reviews, so we'll see. That is my physical TBR. Well, technically those were Kindle, but it's fine. And then I just need to go through my library books that I've got reserved or on loan at the moment. So another book on my TBR is The Marrow Thieves by Sherry DeMaline. I've already started this. I'm about a quarter of the way through. It's quite a short book, but it's a kind of post-apocalyptic future, near future, where climate change is bad and people have stopped dreaming. So everyone's stopped dreaming apart from Indigenous people, and Indigenous people in Canada are being hunted for their bone marrow because apparently this cures it or something like that. It's basically kind of using like the kind of sci-fi post-apocalyptic vibes to explore Indigenous persecution. It's a young adult book, so I found it really accessible so far, and yeah, I think it's going to be like a pretty highly rated read for me once I finish it. Next up, I have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Okay, so I've had this reserved on Libby, and I keep postponing it because I know that it's meant to be really, really sad, and I just haven't been in the headspace for that. But I guess this month is the month. I'll probably read it alongside my nice romance so that I don't feel really depressed. I'm really looking forward to A Little Life. I hope that it lives up to the hype because I know so many people absolutely adore it. It is a very long book, so hopefully I can get through it along with all the other books. The thing with Libby is I only have it for 2 weeks, so I'm gonna try and read it in the first half of this month and just get it out of the way. Wish me luck! Okay, and then finally I have 3 physical books reserved at the library that aren't ready yet, but hopefully they will be. Oh, one of them is ready. Okay, yeah, okay. So, the one I'll definitely be reading this month is the first Dead Space book. It's called Dead Space Martyr by Brian Evanson. My partner has just got the Dead Space remake, and since I really enjoy sci-fi, but I hate horror games, I decided I would read the book and see what the story was about. He recommended that it was a good sci-fi story, so I'm interested to see what it's like in book form, and I can let him know as well. And then I've got 2 other books reserved that are not ready yet, which might fit into this month, but might be next month. So that's Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis and Other Stories. Yeah, I'm just going for the classics. I don't know why. I just really like the whole, you know, like the bug picture. It's very relatable. So I've never read any Kafka and I wanted to read it. So it's reserved. Apparently it's in transit, so I might even get to read it this month. And the last thing that I've got reserved is The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is kind of like kind of similar to Brave New World, I believe. It's like a sort of perfect society where everything's amazing and wonderful and people are kind of controlled by like whoever governs them so that they will have like optimum happiness and stuff like that. Don't quote me, because this is just what I remember roughly from reading the synopsis. But I think that the main character basically starts to see behind the curtain and realizes that this world isn't as perfect as he thought it would be. It's recommended as like one of these like must-read books, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so I think that's me. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. Hopefully not hours. Yeah, I hope that that was interesting and useful. I hope it kind of gives a bit of an insight into my reading like preferences. I kind of read a bit of everything. I quite like literature based stuff like literary fiction and things like that, but I also love sci-fi. I like to read classics to kind of get a different view of the world, and I do read some like more popular contemporary books as well, interspersed in all of the heavy stuff. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. If there's anything that you would recommend to me based on what I'm reading so far, please let me know about that as well. And also, I would love to know if there are any other Scottish booktubers out there that are currently active, because I only know of one who's my friend, and I don't think she's making videos anymore, or not at the moment anyway. So if there's any more Scottish booktubers out there, please drop me a note and I'll get in touch with you. I don't know if I'm going to be doing vlogs or anything like that. At the moment I'm trying to finish my PhD, so it will probably just be wrap-ups and TBRs at the moment, but maybe once I'm finished that, I'll be able to do some like more regular videos. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. It lets me know whether this is good or not. And I'll speak to you all next month.
If I were surrounded by